Why is it that the kindest, most selfless people, the ones who go out of their way to uplift others, often find themselves alone? Have you ever wondered why the very traits that make someone compassionate and thoughtful can sometimes feel like a double-edged sword? Kindness, while beautiful, can become a silent burden when it's misunderstood, unreciprocated, or exploited by the world around us. Nice people often carry the weight of the world on their shoulders, setting high standards for themselves and nurturing a deep sense of independence. They are sensitive to the needs and emotions of others, yet this heightened awareness can lead to feelings of isolation. Instead of being celebrated, their kindness sometimes becomes a barrier, creating misunderstandings and leaving them feeling unseen. In this discussion, we'll uncover 10 surprising reasons why nice people frequently end up alone. From perfectionism and sensitivity to their refusal to settle for shallow connections, we'll delve into how these traits, while noble, can inadvertently push people away. But there's hope. Through the lens of Stoic philosophy, we'll explore how to embrace kindness without losing yourself, and how to strike a balance that fosters connection without compromising your values. Stay with us until the end, because these insights may not only help you understand your journey, but also help you connect with the kind souls around you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic for more transformative content. And share your thoughts in the comments with the affirmation, "I choose kindness and balance." Let's journey together to understand why the kindest hearts often feel the loneliest. Number 1. Always seeing the good in others, even when it hurts. Nice people often carry an unwavering belief in the inherent goodness of others. It's an admirable trait, one rooted in optimism and hope. But this same quality can become their Achilles heel, leaving them vulnerable to manipulation, heartbreak, and disappointment. Their instinct to excuse toxic behavior or justify the actions of those who hurt them stems from a deep-seated desire to see the best in everyone. They tell themselves, maybe they didn't mean it that way, or everyone deserves a second chance. Consider Anna, a kind-hearted teacher who constantly gave her time and energy to a colleague who often dismissed her efforts and took credit for her ideas. Despite the obvious red flags, Anna told herself, "They're just under a lot of stress," or "I'm sure they didn't mean to overlook me." By the time she realized the pattern, the damage was done. Her confidence had eroded, and her contributions were overshadowed by a sense of being invisible. This tendency to overlook the warning signs isn't a flaw. It's a reflection of their core values. Kind people are wired to give others the benefit of the doubt, to hope for change, and to believe that people can rise above their mistakes. But in doing so, they sometimes ignore the cost to their well-being. They bear the weight of one-sided relationships, enduring emotional exhaustion while the other party takes it without reciprocating. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminds us, when someone acts badly toward you, remember that they do so because they think it is right. It is up to you to decide whether their actions truly deserve your trust. Kindness doesn't have to mean blind trust. To protect their hearts, kind people must learn to balance empathy with discernment, understanding that while forgiveness is a gift, it doesn't require self-sacrifice. Kindness is powerful, but when it lacks boundaries, it becomes self-destructive. Learning to recognize and walk away from toxic relationships doesn't make you less kind. It makes you stronger, wiser, and more capable of sharing your kindness with those who truly value it. Number 2. Blaming themselves instead of others. Nice people often carry an internal compass that points directly at self-blame whenever something goes wrong. It's not that they're blind to others' faults, but their instinctive reaction is to search for what they could have done differently, even in situations beyond their control. This tendency stems from a combination of empathy, humility, and an ingrained desire to maintain harmony. But over time, it morphs into an emotional burden that isolates them and makes it harder to open up. Imagine Alex, a compassionate team leader who worked tirelessly to ensure the success of a project. When it failed due to mismanagement by others, Alex's immediate thought was, "I should have foreseen this. Maybe I didn't guide them well enough." While others deflected blame, Alex absorbed it all, replaying every decision in their mind, spiraling into a cycle of guilt and self-doubt. The result? Alex withdrew emotionally, feeling unworthy of connection or support. This self-critical lens, while rooted in kindness, can become a cage. Instead of fostering growth, it amplifies insecurities, making them hesitant to share their struggles or seek help. Over time, the emotional strain creates barriers, making meaningful relationships harder to sustain. Self-blame often masquerades as accountability, but in reality, it denies them the ability to set boundaries or hold others accountable for their actions. The Stoics understood the destructive power of misplaced responsibility. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." For those who constantly blame themselves, this rings true. Their suffering is often amplified by their thoughts, creating mountains out of molehills in their minds. Recognizing this habit is the first step to breaking free from it. Instead of shouldering every burden, kind people must learn to differentiate between what's within their control and what's not. A missed opportunity or a failed relationship isn't always a personal failing. It's often a shared experience shaped by multiple factors. By embracing this truth, they can release themselves from the chains of unnecessary guilt, open their hearts, and foster relationships built on mutual understanding and shared responsibility. Number 3, expecting nothing in return. Nice people have an extraordinary ability to give selflessly. They pour their time, energy, and love into others without expecting anything back. While this might sound noble, and it often is, it comes with a silent cost. Over time, their unwavering generosity can leave them feeling unseen and unappreciated, as if their kindness has become invisible to those around them. The result? A creeping sense of abandonment and the heavy weight of loneliness. Consider Emma, a woman who always puts her friends' needs above her own. When her friend Sarah called late at night to vent about a problem, Emma stayed on the phone for hours, offering comfort and advice. But when Emma faced her struggles, she hesitated to reach out, thinking, "I don't want to burden anyone." The pattern repeated. Emma gave, but she rarely asked for support in return. Slowly, the realization set in. While she was always there for others, she often faced her battles alone. This reluctance to demand anything from others often stems from a deep-seated belief that love and connection should be unconditional. They fear that asking for help might make them appear weak or selfish, so they quietly endure, even as loneliness wraps itself around them like a heavy cloak. What they don't realize is that relationships are a two-way street. True connection comes not just from giving, but also from allowing others the opportunity to give back. The Stoics remind us that reciprocity is part of the natural order. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This philosophy applies not only to material wealth, but to emotional wealth as well. While it's virtuous to minimize demands, it's equally important to recognize that asking for and receiving support isn't a sign of weakness. It's an essential part of human connection. By learning to express their needs, nice people can foster deeper and more balanced relationships. It's not about demanding repayment for kindness, but about inviting others to share in the mutual exchange of care and understanding. In doing so, they can break free from the cycle of silent giving and find the companionship and connection they truly deserve. Number 4, the pain of never saying no. For nice people, the word no feels almost taboo, a sharp blade they can't bear to wield. Even when their well-being is at stake, their reluctance to refuse often stems from a deep-seated fear of disappointing others or being perceived as selfish. But in their quest to be everything for everyone, they slowly carve away pieces of themselves, leaving behind a hollow shell of exhaustion and unmet needs. Imagine Jacob, a kind-hearted man who always says yes to his colleagues' requests, even when his workload is overwhelming. When his boss asks him to take on an extra project late on Friday, Jacob forces a smile and agrees, even though he had planned a rare evening of rest. As the weekend slips away, he sits at his desk, drained and resentful, but still unable to voice the simplest refusal. His kindness becomes a prison, locking him into commitments that sap his energy and crush his spirit. Over time, this inability to set boundaries pulls nice people into one-sided relationships where they give and give, while others take without a second thought. These imbalances don't just hurt, they erode their sense of self-worth. They begin to wonder, am I only valued for what I can do for others? Does anyone truly care about me, or just what I can offer? The truth is, their silence in saying no becomes a loud invitation for exploitation, even if unintentionally. The Stoics remind us of the importance of prioritizing inner peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This wisdom extends to actions we feel compelled to take under pressure. By learning to decline, not out of spite, but from self-respect, nice people can protect their energy and focus on relationships and commitments that truly matter. But breaking free from this cycle is excruciating. Saying no feels like betrayal. To others, to their identity as a kind person, to the ideals they've built their life around. Yet, every quiet yes they force themselves to utter chips away at their strength, their happiness, and their sense of control. To escape the pain, nice people must embrace the courage to disappoint. Saying no is not an act of cruelty, it's an act of self-preservation. It's a reminder that their worth isn't tied to how much they sacrifice, but to the dignity they afford themselves. Only by learning this difficult lesson can they begin to reclaim their time, their energy, and their lives. Number 5. The complex trap of niceness and perfectionism. Many nice people aren't just kind by nature. They're perfectionists in disguise. Their niceness isn't always a pure expression of empathy. It's often the result of a complex mix of high standards and an overwhelming desire to avoid conflict or displease others. This combination creates a perfect storm that fuels people-pleasing behaviors, where being nice becomes less about genuine kindness and more about meeting perceived expectations. Why are nice people so often perfectionists? It's because their self-worth is intricately tied to how others perceive them. Deep down, they believe that if they're anything less than perfect, whether in their work, relationships, or even small social interactions, they risk rejection, disappointment, or being seen as selfish. Their kindness, while admirable, is often driven by a fear of falling short or being judged. Take Sophia, for instance, a successful architect and a devoted friend. She insists on replying to every email within minutes, remembers every birthday with a thoughtful gift, and is the first to volunteer when someone needs help. On the outside, she's the epitome of a considerate person. But on the inside, Sophia's constant striving to be nice is exhausting her. Her perfectionism whispers that she must always go the extra mile, while her desire to be liked convinces her to never say no. The result? Sophia is trapped in a relentless cycle of overcommitment and burnout. This connection between perfectionism and people-pleasing is rooted in the idea that being good means being flawless in the eyes of others. But in their pursuit of perfection, nice people often lose sight of their own needs. They sacrifice rest, personal goals, and even their emotional health to maintain the illusion of being everything for everyone. Over time, this takes a toll, not just on their well-being, but also on their relationships. Their acts of kindness can feel transactional or overly polished, leaving others unsure of their authenticity. The Stoics offer a liberating perspective for those caught in this trap. As Seneca observed, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." Nice people, driven by their fears of imperfection, forget the very mortal truth that no one can please everyone, nor should they try. True kindness doesn't come from perfection. It comes from authenticity and balance. Breaking free requires reframing what it means to be nice. It's about being kind without sacrificing your well-being, setting boundaries without guilt, and recognizing that perfection is neither achievable nor necessary. By embracing this mindset, nice people can transform their kindness from a burden into a genuine strength, one that nourishes both themselves and those around them. After all, being kind isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. Number 6. The burden of unyielding independence. For those who pride themselves on their fierce independence, the idea of leaning on someone else can feel like admitting defeat. They wear their self-reliance like armor, a shining testament to their strength and resilience. Yet, this unyielding independence often comes at a cost, a deep, gnawing solitude that eats away at their soul. In their determination to solve every problem alone, they may find themselves surrounded by people, yet utterly isolated, trapped in a fortress of their own making. Imagine Sarah, a marketing executive in New York City. She's the person her colleagues rely on to fix last-minute crises, the friend who always listens, and the family member who never asks for anything in return. When her car breaks down during a snowstorm, she spends hours figuring out how to tow it herself, refusing to call for roadside assistance because she doesn't want to seem incapable. Later that evening, she works late into the night to finish a project, skipping dinner and declining her neighbor's offer to help with groceries. Sarah tells herself she doesn't need anyone and that she's got everything under control. But beneath the confident exterior lies a secret: exhaustion. She has grown so accustomed to carrying her burdens alone that even when her closest friends offer help, she brushes them off with a polite, "I've got it, but thank you." Over time, the weight grows heavier. On a quiet Sunday morning, as she sips coffee in her small apartment, the loneliness creeps in. She wonders, does anyone truly care, or have I made myself so self-sufficient that I've become untouchable? Her strength, once her greatest asset, begins to feel like a chain, binding her to a life where vulnerability seems like a distant, unattainable luxury. This path is not unique to Sarah. Those who walk the road of relentless independence often find themselves estranged from the very connections that could ease their journey. They inadvertently create a chasm between themselves and others, a silent message that says, "I don't need you." But even the strongest warriors need allies. No battle is won alone, and no fortress is impregnable forever. The Stoics, masters of balance, remind us of the power of shared humanity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." Strength lies not only in standing tall, but in knowing when to let others shoulder part of the weight. A warrior is not weak for calling upon their comrades. They are wise. Breaking free from this cycle of solitude requires a kind of courage that even the strongest can struggle to summon. Asking for help feels like betrayal, to their identity, to their pride, to the very foundation of who they believe themselves to be. But true strength isn't about bearing every burden alone. It's about knowing when to set the sword down and let someone else step in. To escape the pain, those who live too independently must learn the bravery of connection. Vulnerability is not a weakness. It is the truest test of strength. By opening themselves up to the help and understanding of others, they can build bonds that reinforce their resilience rather than diminish it. Only then can they find the balance between independence and interdependence, a harmony that allows them to thrive not just as warriors, but as humans. Number 7. The challenge of selective connection. For those who hold their relationships to the highest standards, connection is not just a matter of proximity or convenience, it's a sacred endeavor. They seek quality over quantity, depth over superficiality. But this refined taste in relationships often leaves them isolated, caught in a delicate tension between longing for connection and refusing to settle for less. Take Michael, a thoughtful and introspective lawyer in Chicago. He's the friend who will drop everything to help you move or stay up late to listen when you're going through a tough time. But when it comes to forming new relationships, Michael is incredibly selective. He avoids networking events where the conversations feel hollow and small talk dominates. Instead, he craves discussions about philosophy, ambitions, and the things that truly matter in life. At a work gathering, Michael finds himself standing alone, nursing his drink. When a colleague approaches to talk about the weather and weekend plans, Michael politely responds but feels no spark of connection. He doesn't follow up to deepen the relationship. For Michael, this surface-level interaction doesn't justify the emotional investment he reserves for the relationships he values most. Yet, as he walks home that evening, he can't help but feel a pang of loneliness. His commitment to meaningful relationships has unintentionally left him navigating life alone. This approach, while rooted in a sincere desire for authentic connection, comes with challenges. The quest for perfection in relationships can create a rigid framework that excludes the possibility of organic growth. Kind-hearted, selective individuals like Michael often forget that even the most profound relationships can begin with seemingly mundane exchanges. The perfection they seek may lie not in finding ready-made depth, but in allowing depth to evolve. The Stoics remind us that relationships, like all aspects of life, require acceptance of imperfection. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This wisdom applies to relationships as well. By shifting their focus from seeking ideal connections to nurturing genuine ones, kind-hearted perfectionists can build the bonds they desire. To break free from the loneliness of selective connection, they must embrace the idea that not every interaction needs to lead to a profound relationship, but every relationship starts with a single interaction. By allowing themselves to engage with others, even in imperfect ways, they create opportunities for the authenticity and depth they value so deeply. The courage to connect lies not in lowering their standards, but in recognizing that true relationships are forged over time, through shared moments and mutual vulnerability. By softening their approach and letting others into their world, they'll discover that meaningful connections are not rare treasures. They're seeds waiting to be cultivated. Only then can they find the balance between their discerning nature and their innate desire for human connection. Number 8. The silent shield of kindness. For kind-hearted individuals, avoiding conflict is not a sign of weakness. It's a deliberate choice rooted in their deep understanding of the destructive power of negative words. They know that harsh remarks can fracture relationships and leave lasting wounds. Out of empathy and a desire to preserve harmony, they often choose silence over confrontation. However, this quiet strength often comes at a personal cost. They endure much, keeping their needs and emotions bottled up to avoid upsetting others. Over time, this self-imposed restraint leaves them vulnerable to being overlooked or taken for granted. Their silence, meant to protect others, is frequently misinterpreted as passivity. As a result, they may be seen as submissive or weak, despite the immense inner strength it takes to suppress their desires and emotions for the sake of peace. Take Hannah, a dedicated nurse in a busy city hospital. When her coworker habitually offloads extra tasks onto her, Hannah quietly takes them on without complaint. She tells herself it's better to shoulder the burden than to cause tension in the team. But as weeks pass, she grows exhausted and frustrated, feeling unappreciated and invisible. Her kindness, instead of fostering mutual respect, leads to her being unintentionally taken advantage of. The Stoics teach us the value of moderation and balance, even in kindness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." For kind-hearted people, this wisdom serves as a reminder that being good and kind also means being good to oneself. Silence is not inherently noble if it leads to imbalance or erasure of one's own needs. To break free from this cycle, they must learn to assert their boundaries without abandoning their compassion. Speaking up doesn't have to mean conflict. It can mean respectfully expressing their needs and ensuring their voice is heard. By balancing kindness with self-respect, they can create relationships that are not one-sided but mutually supportive. Kind-hearted individuals must understand that their silence, while well-intentioned, can sometimes enable misunderstandings or exploitation. It's not their kindness that needs to change, but the way they channel it. By allowing themselves to be heard, they can protect their well-being and show that kindness is not synonymous with weakness, but with strength, dignity, and self-awareness. True harmony comes not from avoiding every conflict, but from ensuring their kindness is met with respect. In learning to pair their empathy with a clear voice, they remind the world that compassion is not a weakness to be underestimated. It is a power that thrives when balanced with self-worth. Number 9. Finding strength in solitude. For kind-hearted individuals, solitude is not a punishment but a sanctuary. When they feel overlooked or misunderstood, they retreat into their inner world, a place of quiet reflection and renewal. In this stillness, they rediscover their worth, a value that is not contingent on external validation, but rooted in the strength of their character and the clarity of their principles. Take Daniel, a thoughtful artist in Austin, Texas. Known for his generosity and compassion, he often finds himself drained by relationships where his kindness is taken for granted. When he realizes that his efforts are not reciprocated or appreciated, Daniel begins to pull away. At first, the loneliness feels heavy, like a weight pressing on his heart. But as days turn into weeks, he starts to notice the beauty of solitude. In the quiet, he paints with greater focus, journals his thoughts, and reconnects with the passions that make him whole. This transformation highlights a profound truth. Solitude is not emptiness, but an opportunity. It allows kind-hearted individuals to step away from the noise of external expectations and cultivate their inner strength. In the absence of others' judgments, they can reflect on their values, reaffirm their beliefs, and nurture the resolve to remain true to themselves. The Stoics, champions of self-reliance, understood the power of solitude. Seneca wrote, "It is in times of security that the spirit should be preparing itself for difficult times. While fortune is bestowing favors on it, then is the time for it to be strengthened against her rebuffs." Solitude, in this light, becomes a training ground, a place where the kind-hearted forge resilience, deepen their understanding of the world, and strengthen their commitment to kindness, even when it goes unrecognized. Far from being a retreat from the world, solitude becomes a challenge that sharpens their character. It teaches them that their worth is not defined by how others see them, but by the courage they show in remaining kind despite adversity. In solitude, they find clarity, creativity, and the resolve to continue living authentically, even when the world seems indifferent. Kind-hearted individuals must embrace the idea that being alone is not the same as being abandoned. Solitude is a choice, a moment to pause, reflect, and grow stronger. It is where they learn to fill their cup so they can give to others without depleting themselves. By finding strength in solitude, they prove that kindness is not dependent on recognition, but is an intrinsic part of who they are. It is in their quiet, unseen moments of renewal that they cultivate the will to remain compassionate, even in a world that sometimes fails to understand or appreciate them. Solitude, for them, is not isolation. It is a crucible where their kindness becomes unshakable. Number 10. Resolute in kindness, even when love falters. For kind-hearted individuals, kindness is not a tactic to gain approval, but a deeply ingrained principle that defines who they are. Even when life's challenges like heartbreak or unfulfilled relationships test their resolve, they refuse to let pain or disappointment strip them of their values. To them, kindness is a choice, not a habit born from the need to be loved. It is their anchor, their compass, guiding them through storms of indifference or misunderstanding. Take Emma, a thoughtful woman who pours her heart into her relationships, always striving to uplift and support her partners. Yet after several failed relationships where her kindness was misunderstood or taken for granted, Emma finds herself retreating into solitude. It's not bitterness or anger that drives her to step away, it's clarity. She realizes that her worth is not tied to how others treat her, but to her unwavering commitment to kindness and authenticity. In her solitude, Emma rediscovers her strength. The quiet moments allow her to reflect on what truly matters to her: her principles, her goals, and her belief in the transformative power of kindness. While the world may see her withdrawal as a sign of resignation, for Emma, it is a deliberate act of self-preservation and renewal. She chooses to be alone, not because she has given up on love, but because she refuses to compromise her values in its pursuit. This connection between solitude and resilience is what defines truly kind-hearted people. When the world, especially their romantic world, falls short of their expectations, they retreat not out of weakness, but to protect and realign with their core beliefs. They understand that losing themselves for the sake of others, approval or affection would be the greater loss. The Stoics offer timeless wisdom for moments like these. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." For people like Emma, solitude becomes a sanctuary where they can cultivate those thoughts, reaffirm their purpose, and rebuild their faith in kindness, even after it has been tested by heartbreak. Far from hardening their hearts, solitude strengthens their resolve to continue giving, even when their efforts are misunderstood or unreciprocated. They know that kindness is not about how it is received, but about how it defines them. This belief gives them the courage to remain true to themselves, even in the face of disappointment. Their choice to stand firm in their values, even when love falters, is a testament to their strength. They may walk alone for a time, but they do so with the knowledge that kindness is not a transaction. It is a legacy. By staying resolute, they show that their compassion is not a response to the world, but a reflection of the unshakable foundation they have built within themselves. In the end, Kind-hearted individuals teach us that solitude is not a retreat from life, but a space to heal, grow, and prepare for deeper, more authentic connections. Their resilience in the face of adversity reminds us all that true kindness shines brightest when it is given freely, without expectation, and with unwavering courage. Conclusion. Kind-hearted individuals may often find themselves feeling lonely, not because they are unworthy of happiness, but because they set high standards and prioritize their core values. However, with awareness and a willingness to adjust, by easing excessive self-sacrifice and learning to balance their needs, they can create healthy, meaningful relationships that honor both their kindness and their well-being. If you see yourself in this description, take the first step today by practicing self-love. Embrace your worth and recognize that your kindness deserves to be paired with self-respect. To stay inspired, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic for more insightful lessons. Share your commitment to a balanced, fulfilling life by leaving a comment that says, "I choose balanced kindness and self-love." Thank you for taking the time to connect with this message. Always remember that kindness, when expressed in the right way, not only brings joy to others, but also enriches your own life. Until next time, let's continue to explore the values and principles that make life truly meaningful.